All right, so in this episode, we're going to talk about being a break-even trader. We're going to continue the topic that we just began in part one. So if you didn't check that out, you could certainly do that, or you could watch this and then go back. It's totally fine. So many of you tuning in may be, in fact, a break-even trader, someone who has 2 steps forward, 2 steps back. We also can call that stagnation in trading. And we've sort of identified that there's 2 different places that this can occur. The first is when you're not yet a profitable trader at all, and you've never been a profitable trader. This is usually when there's not a lot of strategy. You're just kind of going sideways, and that's sort of because you lack competence. You don't really know what you're doing yet. You haven't developed a strategy. Okay, that's fine. And then there's the second phase, which is you know what you're doing. You've been profitable in the past, but now you're in a rut, and you're having a hard time kind of getting out of it. And many of us have been there, whether it's for a stretch of 2 weeks of being a break-even trader, a month, 2 months, 6 months. Almost all of us have been there for at one point or another. I think my longest stretch since turning the corner would probably be about 6 months, where over the course of 6 months, I made money, then gave it back, then made money, gave it back. And at the end of 6 months, I really didn't have much to show for that period of trading. Maybe a little bit, but not much at all. So basically break even. Now, in a lot of ways, that was actually me doing exactly what I needed to do to manage risk during a market that wasn't really hot for me. I was reducing and minimizing my downside. So when things started to heat up, well, I just went from the plateau to pulling away. But that obviously requires confidence, the ability to be willing to start to step up and take risk. So from someone in here who's been in a period of sort of sideways trading, break-even trading, and then pulled out of it, I don't know if Timmy or Marcelo or Nick, you can comment on that moment of starting to pull away.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I've already had way too much to say this comparatively to everyone else. For entire 2021, you guys were killing it. At the beginning, March-ish, the GameStop craze, like I was responsible enough to trade it probably till like the last one, and I took a little bit of an L on cost and GME.
Yeah.
And that kind of put me in like a sideways holding pattern to where I would be like too aggressive, too conservative, too aggressive, too conservative, too aggressive, too conservative. And I didn't really lose money. I lost a lot of time, I guess, and it was very frustrating. There was so many times where it was like, I think I'm turning the corner, and like it was almost like right on cue. Once I thought I was turning the corner, behavior would change, and it was something you start noticing after a while, after it's happened 2 or 3 times. And then, behavior changes. I get a little aggressive. I start thinking I can play with the big boys, Shout out to Manoli and everyone else in the room. And, my strategy would start changing, and I'd start going from things that actually was making me money to, trying to trade like other people. And that was like a big thing for me. So, I mean, honestly, there were a lot of different things that I had to work on. I think people oversimplify life a little too much. I mean, it is simple, but it's not simple. It's like, why do you come in and you do things that aren't in your strategy? Maybe you ate something that doesn't agree with you the night before, and you're a little too emotional because you just don't. You're not. Everyone's not looking at every little detail of their life.
For sure.
A little bit of a side point. But what I had to do is I had to realize, I just spent a year of my life doing this.
Yeah.
And I had to, come to terms with, it's basically like a vacation for me. I'm trying something new.
Yep.
It's an attempt. It may not work out. And when I run out of, my PDT money, if I have to go below PDT, I'm going to get another job, and that's fine. And I had to, start structuring it in 2 ways. One was it was like a vacation. So I would try to get out a little bit earlier and go surf or go to the gym or go work out. And then I did everything I possibly could outside of trading, because I've already did everything I could in trading, and it just put me in a circle. But outside of trading, every possible thing I could break down in my life, in the charts, I got a tablet. I started reviewing everything every day, every chart that was moving. I take a screenshot of it still to this day. I have notebooks that like I write logs in. I prep it for the next day. Meditation was huge in being able to like have all these new insights, but also be able to implement them.
Yeah.
So like there was like a big disconnect in the like knowing what I should do and being able to implement them. Meditation was probably the only thing that really made the biggest difference in being able to implement that. So, I mean, it's complex, and you kind of have to like accept it is complex.
Yeah.
Like it's not a simple thing. There's so many people. And if you are break even too, like you are in a fantastic place because you're facing everybody who's trying to take your money. Like, and if you're able to get in and get out and keep that, you're dealing with like market makers who are like having the spreads as wide as they can. You're dealing with people who are trying to sell short, longs who are trying to get out before you.
Payment for order flow.
Payment for order flow. All these different competing parties that are trying to get your money. And if you're able to stay in the middle, you're doing something right.
Yeah.
And it doesn't mean that you're going to be successful because there is like a lot of stuff you have to work on to get past these like different hurdles that you're going to face. But you got to start like studying yourself.
Well, the default for anyone to start trading is they'll lose money.
Exactly.
So that's the default.
The point. You're ahead.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
People think, oh, I'm breaking even. That any idiot can break even.
Well,
and that's actually not true.
The
because breaking
frustration-
even by itself is already a couple steps above
Right.
the
And
losing.
recognizing that helps with the frustration that will
Yeah.
put your emotions out of whack when you're trading. So like if you're changing your behavior because you're break even, middle of the day and you're frustrated, you see someone make like 10K.
Sure.
You saw Jorge make 50K or whatever.
Yeah.
If you see these big numbers coming out and you're like, why am I not there? I better size up, right
Right.
now. You got to ask yourself, how long did it take you to develop this strategy that you have right now? Like, you think you can change that in like a split second decision in the middle of the day and like be profitable with that? Like, it just doesn't work like that. Like,
Right.
So I've already
Just staying present with yourself and like recognizing that in the
absolutely.
moment. Yeah.
Yeah.
that's so
It's
important.
really hard. The meditation really helps with that. One last thing, because I have talked too long, is the book Mastery by George Leonard points out this kind of it's a very American thing. We all think life is like this upward kind of trajectory, like this, like a stock that's like just going parabolic, right?
Yeah.
And he was like a keto or judo guy, and he's like, life really looks more like you have these little spurts of progress and it goes sideways, spurt of progress and it goes sideways, and spurt of progress and it goes sideways until you reach these different levels of mastery. And it's because there's a time that it takes for your brain and your body to like get adjusted to these new improvements that you had. So like if you're not used to making, you're not used to making 70K on your own, sitting at your house, not having to talk to anybody, and you do that in a year and you're psychologically not ready for it, there's stuff that's going to happen from that. And like I experienced that.
I bet there's a lot of people tuning in who are like, I think I can get psychologically ready to make
Right.
70,000 in 1 year.
You can, but things change. You start changing your behavior.
Absolutely.
You get looser.
And you develop an expectation that I'm going to be able to continue to do this
Absolutely.
forever.
Absolutely. And then, and also like on the loss side, if you're not ready to take those losses, your behavior is going to change as well, shifting from profitable behavior to impulsive behavior.
Yes.
And so like it's all these little things which actually create like that it's good that you have these plateaus. It allows your body and your brain to get used to the variation in the trading experience.
I think something else that a lot of people, especially beginners traders, don't understand is that the reward in trading, especially when you're going through the learning curve, doesn't come as you go. Like for example, when you go to the gym, you're gonna see results in the first week. You're gonna see results in the first month, and it's like you put in work, you get results. You put in work, you get results. In trading and surviving the learning curve, you can put months, years of work without seeing a penny back.
Yeah, or negative.
Or negative,
Yeah.
exactly.
So it's also really good to ask yourself, what are some other ways I could get paid, like emotionally from this, or like like as an experience? Like this is something new that I'm doing. It's like you have the blessing to have this much capital in your account to go and like play with it on the market and like to be a part of this game. Like how can you learn from this? How can you grow as a person? Like there's a lot of ways to get paid, and it's not all money.
Right, exactly. So you have to adopt that mindset that the reward, let's say if you ever make it to the other side, it's going to come all at once. But once you finally survive the learning curve, don't expect to, give and you get back, give and you get back, because this career is not like that, at least at the beginning.
Ted and I have talked about this phase of getting into the place where you are profitable for days or weeks or maybe even months, and then having those days where you give it all back as an intermediate phase of trading. That it's a necessary plateau that a lot of people, pass through, but the passing through it often takes longer, much longer than they expected, and that's where the frustration that Nick mentioned, and the way that can really intersect with the individual's own experience of themselves. So in terms of I think you touched on this, Larissa, when you were talking about, might have been you, it might have been somebody else, but anyway, talking about having that expectation of getting there more quickly, which is something we hear with a lot of traders, having that expectation of themselves that they should be getting there more quickly. And a lot of times it's based on, well, I'm a fast learner. I think you said that, right?
That was my word. Literally.
Yeah.
I'm a fast learner. I learned all of these other things and not really, it's almost sort of similar to not having the kind of respect for the trading or the market that you would for like the ocean or a river, that it can be very dangerous.
How long does it start to take a business to profitability?
Right.
Or to become a doctor?
Right, exactly. There are similar things, but oftentimes people's expectations, that's the part that really can help with acceptance, is getting those expectations in line and seeing this as, some of those stages at least as a necessary part of the journey, like you were talking about from that book. But one of the pieces that I do think about is, what about when you become too comfortable there? When you're too cozy in that space of not growing. What helps?
Quit your job and just rely on your trading.
No, I can totally relate to that. I feel like last year when I was having pretty good progress and I could have definitely scaled up, it was just like a comfort thing. I feel like $300 a day, whatever it was, 200-300, I'd just take it and I would just leave. Because for me, it's like, it's more than enough to do whatever I need to do. But in terms of actually like scaling up and becoming a better trader throughout that time, I definitely could have done a better job just not being complacent on, like I said earlier, not looking at my winners every day to get better at the winners, just like getting better at not losing as much. So and not doing that definitely I think hurt me today, not being able to scale up as much just because I'm so used to that size that I've just been accustomed to for almost 2 years now.
Yeah, I think the stagnation after profitable, I think a contributor to that is things are going well, so you don't feel like you really need to hold yourself to the standard of journaling or taking screenshots or reviewing your recordings. You're just kind of coasting, and that's all fine and well until the market shifts, and now the strategy that you've been so dependent on for this period of time isn't working as well. Because the market's always changing, and it goes in cycles. I mean, a strategy will work really well, then it might not work as well, and then it'll come back. But of course, the best traders are able to adapt to the changing markets and are able to kind of keep themselves improving, which is a little hard when things are going really well, because you might feel like, I don't really need to. If you go to the gym a lot and you get, in really great shape, the kind of, I can maybe ease off a little bit. And then next thing you know.
Well, at this point, you got to be Tom Brady and just have it for the love of the game, right?
Right. Yeah.
But the other way around also applies. Whenever, for example, right now we're in a bear market and we're in a market that even the best traders are not performing as good. Right. That is no excuse for you to be like, okay, I can do terribly bad in this, in this market because everybody else is struggling.
Sure.
That is that is no excuse to, be comfortable in a place of losing money or be comfortable in a place of being break even. You always got to be proactive in trying to get better, regardless of the circumstances.
Yeah, in these current conditions, this is a time to get even more curious about
right,
and to not take it as personally that, okay, the things that you're doing aren't working as well as they used to. That's not a condemnation of you as a person or even as a trader. It's more of an invitation into, okay, if this isn't working, what will?
Right.
And approaching it with that mindset of, this is a time to discover something new.
And also having the mindfulness of knowing when going sideways is enough, because before I became successful in small caps, I remember I was trading large caps, like earnings and that type of stuff. And I was also break-even in that too. But also, I always had this type of mindset that I'm never going to quit anything. I'm always going to figure it out, stuff like that. But in something like trading, that can really harm you. So I got to until I read this book called The Dip, funny enough, I was able to get into terms that me quitting this large cap strategy and me quitting, that path and me refocusing my energy into something else was also part of having a winning mindset of, I only have this energy, I only have this time for me to focus on something super, super deep. Me choosing to quit this strategy doesn't mean that I'm a failure. It just means that I've tried it enough. I've been going sideways for long enough. I know that it's not for me. Let me pivot and try something else. And, here I am, small caps.
There's so many different components to trading. There's all of the actual figuring out how to trade. There's all the emotional components. It often makes me think of the Rubik's Cube, oh, well, I got one side of the Rubik's Cube. And then, I've got to get like, okay, what does it take to get two sides? And every time it's like kind of like a groan. You're like, I have to screw it all up again to try to get, and what if I can't get back to three sides? What if I never get back to three sides?
I like what you said before though, Dan, how it was like being break even, or even like having losses that result you to a break even trader, so to say, is almost like a necessary plateau that you have, because I know for sure that if I did not have the losses I had, I would not know how to deal with them.
Right.
It almost took me having the losses that I had, or giving back my entire month, which I've done time and time again, to understand how not to do that, or at least how to, here's my one huge red day, now my next one, now, and almost sort of mitigate that. But then the other side of that issue is, all right, you're mitigating those losses now, but how are you increasing your winners? Because that's where I'm at right now, is where each of them are almost 1-to-1, so to say, like long-term speaking. You go through those big drawdowns and you learn how to mitigate them, but now you need to learn how to, and even as Marcelo said, if you don't put yourself out there, you don't just take the trade, you're going to be complacent and just, comfortable in being that little sideways. And it's not going to be like that forever, but there will come a point in time where you got to say, hey, now what's next? Now how do I improve from here?
One of the pieces that I think is really striking when I work with traders is that sometimes I'll be talking to somebody, and then as we kind of review maybe the last 6 months or something, or even the last 3 months, but review a little bit about, maybe they've been working on trying to cut losses, and they've gotten to a place that compared to 6 months ago, they're cutting them so much faster that that when they are having those red days or a small red streaks, they're having a situation where it's like they've cut it in half what they're losing. Maybe they're trying to stay in the winners a little bit longer, and that's improved. They're by 25% or something. It's not until they actually talk through that stuff that I can see them beginning to become aware of it. And we talked about that a little bit earlier, and Ross was talking about the importance of talking through something, even if you're just talking to yourself, and the same thing when you're in a trade, sometimes talking it out loud can help you get really grounded or more aware of what you're actually doing. But all of that is really important. And coming back to what Ted was talking about the shark cage, it's like when you're if you've created a safety around you, if you've created that situation, and I'm thinking about a trader that I have worked with for a while, and he follows a similar strategy to Ross, and so Ross is like the mentor that he's always paying attention to. And in one of our conversations, he felt like he had been frustrated, and he pulled way back on he was doing one trade a day, and he put himself in kind of a trader rehab and all this stuff. And then he said, oh, well, I did these things today, so tomorrow I'm really going to take the day off from trading. But he was punishing himself into a box, really. Because the other thing he said is, I'm just really bummed out about it because, we're seeing the movement that this is where Ross always says you have to go aggressive. And so he'd been trading long enough. That he saw what was setting up. He saw the conditions. He knew what he should do, but he was tempted to be in the shark cage.
Yeah.
Because that's where he'd gotten used to being. And
I read a quote just recently that said, a ship is safe on the harbor, but that's not what it was built for.
right.
And that's sort of like what you're saying.
I think a big
And by taking that chance of actually getting aggressive in those places where he knew that was, taking that shark cage off in the places where he knew this is where I can go for it, that really helped him to grow out of that stagnation.
a lot of this comes down to the word trust is what's really coming up as we're having this conversation. It's like the negative experiences that you might have as a trader and the mistakes that you yourself make can really erode your sense of trust in your own trading. And when you have, in this, trading journey, getting to those places where you're actually making good trades. I've worked with traders who, their accuracy, percentage could be even like 80%, and yet they're still not profitable traders because even though they, day in and day out, they're able to prove that they know what they're doing. They have those emotionally hit days where they give it all back.
Right.
And, the aftermath of when that happens is this complete loss of trust in themselves as a trader. And I've spoken with them after days like that. I need to throw away everything I thought I was doing, everything I thought I knew. Nothing I'm doing is working. And that's actually not true.
And that's exactly why you gotta get out of the break-even pattern as soon as you can, because if you stay there for too long, you get into that mindset of you lose all your skills, your intuition as a trader goes away, and then you just stuck there forever. And
Right.
I don't want to mention any names, but I know some of my trading friends that have been break-even for forever, and it seems like they're stuck there no matter what they do. So
Yeah.
break-even is not a safe place to stay forever. It's something that is good. It's definitely progress because you're not losing money, but still a place that you're you should actively be trying to get out of.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Well
Yeah.
said.
Yeah. And that it comes back to taking steps that are going to help build your confidence as a trader, looking at the things that you're doing that are working well, taking time to look back at my progress over the last 3 months, even if it's not monetary, but my average losses have gotten smaller, or maybe they've gotten bigger, but it's something that you have to spend time looking at
Right.
and really approaching this with curiosity. What am I doing that's working? What are other people doing right now that's working? Am I willing to explore what's working for someone else, even though I've not tried that before? And just really try to keep focusing on your growth as a trader. But, don't discount the fact that being break even by itself is some degree of an accomplishment.
Right.
So, you're making progress. Now it's what are my action steps for getting through that turning point? And for me, when I was going through this period, my biggest turning point was discovering, by looking through all of my metrics, it was discovering that there was actually a sort of strategy that I had. I just didn't really realize or identify it as that. But when I looked at that, I discovered, this is the common denominator among all my winning trades. This is what I need to go all in on, and everything else I need to put it aside for right now. It's not throwing it away, but it's just, I'm not going to trade these news trades or these options trades. I'm just going to focus on high relative volume, up 10%, straight momentum. And then I gave it some time, reviewed my metrics, and I was pleased.
Right.
Yeah.
And then from there, I continued to grow. So for those that have been tuning in for this episode, I hope you find this interesting. We've got a couple more episodes that we're going to be recording.
I got one last
Oh,
thing
please.
to cap it off. Sorry.
Yeah, please do.
I when I was turning when I was like kind of spinning but not going anywhere, I read something about like when you're playing poker, at a certain point, like you got to just stop playing at tables that are too hard for you, because you're not going to win at those. The players are too good. They're too advanced. They know exactly what you're going to do. Like, you're going to get faked out. So you just have to play at the kiddie tables, basically. And that's what I started doing, and it actually helped a lot.
So how about this?
I stopped playing Ross's strategy, by the way.
Okay, all right. So how about this? How about for the next episode, we're going to talk about how to day trade like a poker player. Let's see where that takes us. All right, that'll be coming up next. Hey, I want to thank you for watching this episode. I hope you really enjoyed it. This channel has crossed over 1 million subscribers, and it's thanks to viewers like you. If you want to check out a couple other episodes that other traders are watching, you can see them listed right here. Thank you as always for tuning in, and I hope you subscribe to the channel.